This morning I'll present the SDG Plus Indonesia Fund, which is an innovative partnership and fund structure to address the sustainable development goals and specifically address deforestation, conservation, and climate impact. The next slide, please. Yeah. So as many are aware, there's a substantial financing gap to achieve the SDGs. According to UN Global Compact, at roughly 2.5 trillion USD per year. There's several impediments, right, that restrict the flow of capital to solutions in organizations that are capable of contributing to the SDGs. But we focus on what we perceive as two of the most critical. First is that non-financial returns, meaning the human, social, environmental benefits of activities and projects, are rarely quantified and fully considered in financing decisions. As a result, these benefits that these organizations are generating that contribute towards the Sustainable Development Goals are not valued. And this has a limiting effect on the amount of capital that goes towards projects and organizations seeking to address the SDGs. Second, and this is specific to NGOs and social enterprise organizations, often with decades of meaningful experience that's very much needed right now to address the SDGs, they spend a considerable amount of time and resources seeking grant funding. And likewise, this limits the ability of these organizations to focus on creating maximum impact with their expertise. So we think there are three critical solutions to address these two impediments. First is greater integration and quantification of non-financial returns. In our context for this morning, we're going to refer to that as SDG outcomes. Second is that structures must be developed with scale in mind. So if we consider the urgency of addressing these goals and issues, it's important that scale is designed in. And then lastly, the structure should generate reliable sources of funding for SDG-oriented organizations and project developers in exchange for generating and then reporting SDG outcomes back to investors. In response to these challenges, we developed the SDG Plus Indonesia Fund, and there's a few key concepts and projected impacts. So first, the financial returns are from a blended ESG portfolio, and those returns will be shared between investors and a beneficiary organization. The beneficiary shares in the annual cash yield of the portfolio, but not in the overall gains of the fund. Second is non-financial returns that are generated when the beneficiary uses those funds to invest in projects. Those impacts are quantified as SDG outcomes and reported back to investors as part of their overall returns. And then third, we've constructed the fund in order to scale so that future funds will address a different set of SDGs with new beneficiaries addressing those specific set of SDG goals. So that brings us to our next slide, which is the specifics of this fund. So in the spirit of the SDGs, we focus on partnership. And so AWR Lloyd Asset Management and PT Bahana TCW are collaborating as fund and impact managers. Bahana is the third largest fund manager in Indonesia, approximately 3 billion USD under management, and has extensive experience with impact-focused endowment funds. In regards to the beneficiary for this fund, we are working with Alam Sehat Lestari, or ASRI, which has been active in Indonesia for over a decade, focused on conservation and sustainable development through education and healthcare-focused outcomes in local communities. The targeted SDGs of ASRI's activities are 3, good health and well-being, 13, climate action, and 15, life on land. However, there are multiple positive outcomes across a wider spectrum of SDGs that we've noted there on the bottom right of the slide. Next slide is, this is an overview of the various partners that we've assembled in the fund and the specific roles. Again, as mentioned, Bahana has 20 years of experience leading fixed income and endowment manager in Indonesia, and their role is fund strategy and management. AWR Lloyd acts as the impact manager. We have 20 years experience largely in strategy consulting, investor communications relations, and transactions advisory in the Indo-Pacific region, and will be responsible for ESG integration and investor communication strategy as well as quantification of SDG outcomes from ASRI's activities. Third, so ASRI is the beneficiary in this fund structure and will receive a portion of the annual cash yield in order to make additional project investments. They'll collaborate with AWR Lloyd as well as Health and Harmony, which is a sister organization to ASRI, to quantify that impact. And then lastly, we're very proud to have the global support of the Private Finance Advisory Network, or PFAN, in the development of this fund. To give you a sense of the allocation of the fund, it's split between public equities and bonds. The public equities are an ESG screened and overweight to Asia Pacific companies, whereas the sustainable bond portion is geared specifically to Indonesia. And again, that's to leverage the experience and expertise of Bahana. A requirement in structuring the fund in this way is to ensure that there's an annual cash yield that can be shared both between investors and ASRI. So a little bit more now about PT Bahana TCW. Is a joint venture between PT Bahana Pembinaan Usaha and the Trust Company of the West. So they're the top fixed income manager in the country, awarded Best Asset and Fund Manager for 5 consecutive years between 2015 and 2019. And the firm has seen pretty remarkable growth in assets under management, 26% consolidated annual growth rate from going back to 2005. A little more on Bahana is that not only are they leading asset manager in the country, but they've been a pioneer in sustainable investing, certainly in the region. They launched the first green fund in Indonesia in 2007, Kahati Lestari. And that same award was just recently awarded the Best Impact Fund of Indonesia in 2019 last year. As well, our colleagues at Bahana are the largest endowment manager in the country and currently manage 6 fixed income endowment funds with a sustainable development component for Indonesia. These funds have tended to focus on education, supporting research and social programs at the nation's universities, as well as funds supporting conservation, affordable healthcare, and community development and economic empowerment. In IDR denominated terms, the funds have achieved annual returns between 8 and 11%.